Waiting on Sean. He'll be here in a little bit. We just recorded a 2-hour Patreon-only episode. You won't get the video for that unless you're a Patreon supporter, but the episode will come out on a regular podcast feed later on. I'm exhausted. We have a lot of movies to talk about. But if you're bored while you're waiting, go to TeePublic, get some merch, get the shirt. Here comes Sean. I'll stop talking to the audience. I'll wait for Sean to get here. Hello.
Hello.
All right, cool. So you ready?
Yeah, maybe. Let me see here. I think so. You got the list?
Yeah.
All right. All right, go ahead.
All right. Where am I at here? Okay, there's this. And I will hit record. I think you'll be able to hear the sound this time.
It sounds different, that's for sure.
Good or bad?
Good. Yeah, you sound like you're right in the room.
I'm using the microphone now. Normally you just listen it through my computer.
Okay.
So we'll see how it goes. Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. We're also on YouTube. We stream live either on Sunday mornings or Monday nights, or even random times after that. But those are the main two. If you want to be notified, click on the little bell in the right-hand corner to get notified when we're streaming live. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/criticspod. The best way to help support the podcast. We're now doing bonus episodes monthly to try to encourage you to be a Patreon supporter, even if it's for a couple bucks a month. It does help out. We just recorded a almost 2-hour A24 bonus podcast with the most likable former member of the podcast, Josh, joining us. And I know we talked about a lot of those movies, but it's always fun to bring it back up. So it was a lot of fun doing that episode.
Yeah.
We also have the I Spit on Your Grave episode out there as well. It's also on a normal feed, but video only is on Patreon. So if you want to see the videos, they will be on Patreon. And then TeePublic. Our TeePublic page. Oh shit, that's not the right one. Stop sharing. Share. I swear to God, I hit the right one. Share. There we go.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah, we got some. It's not even a model. They did this. I didn't. I'm sure it's fake. But you can get our logo, the Everyone's a Critic and I Hate Critics logo, the Lord of the Fitbit, Fellowship of the Steps, Batman versus Jesus. I'm wearing that now as well. We also got Willem Dafoe's confusingly large wiener and Cameron Diaz's shoulder. All that is at our Patreon or TeePublic. If you go to IHateCritics.net and click on the TeePublic link, you can get any of the merch you want. You can also get these little notebooks that I'm using out to keep notes and show notes in. All sorts of stuff, pillows, tapestries, whatever you want. All right, let's get to the show. We'll start with probably going to win the Oscar, Nomadland.
Very likely to win the Oscar, like a definite Best Picture contender. And of course, it's Frances McDormand. You can't be too surprised about that. She's incredible. Directed by Chloe Zhao, who did The Rider back in 2017, which is another incredible movie. She's the poet of the modern American West. She's just beautiful. She captures images and story so beautifully. And here she's telling the story of somebody who's on the very edge of society, a traveler, a nomad, if you will, who is she lost her husband and she now lives in this van, but not because she can't support herself necessarily, or that she doesn't want to have a place to live. She just prefers living in this van that she's kitted out for herself to live in as a home. And it allows her to go different places and have different experiences and meet new people and just kind of take a tour through life in a way that fits the way she sees the world, and how unmoored she is from typical traditional life by what's taken place. The entire town in which she lived was completely devastated and no longer exists, which is a strange thing to think about, but it's happened in recent American history where towns just stop existing. There was a very large company was there, and then it wasn't, and when it was gone, the entire town was gone, and that her husband died, and that's where she finds herself just kind of looking around the world. And that's the movie's just observing her and what she's doing, and also creating these incredibly beautiful images along the way. It's a wonderful film, and Frances McDormand just delivers again and again with these brave and bold and beautiful performances.
And unique performances. I mean, this is not like really anything typical that you see from actors. It's just kind of, she's not one of those actors you can typecast. She's, I mean, really, as much as Meryl Streep's great, Frances McDormand could be the one that's nominated every year. I mean, that's how good she is in everything she does ever. And this is no exception. In fact, it may even be, I would say it's even better than the one she won just was it last year the year before, the 3 Billboards.
Oh God, yeah, it is better than 3 Billboards.
Oh, she's phenomenal. I mean, and it's another slice of life movie where you're just kind of watching, stuff happen, but because of the imagery, the direction, the acting, it's an easy watch, a good watch. And I mean, you have to watch her kind of. Does she want to be here? Is she punishing herself? I mean, why? There's so much going on with why she's a nomad. And at the same time, there's times where you sit there and I mean, I could see some millennial or hipster being like, I could live like that. I want to start living my life, living off the land, but they have a good time when they get together and everybody's just kind of hanging out in their vans and trailers. And I don't know. This was a really enjoyable movie.
There's no Alex Jones conspiracy theories, no tinfoil hats. We're trying to live off the grid to get away from the government or any type of nonsense like that. No. The spirit that they cultivate when they do get together, this group of people who all live in vans or of similar transportation, they get together and they just support each other and they give each other things like, oh, I need one of those. Well, I have one here. You can have it. I've already got 2. And that's just basically, it's almost like a perfect socialist utopia when they get together, which is kind of sweet and beautiful in its way. In a weird way, this is kind of a spiritual sequel to another movie that I just watched and talked about a lot this week called Ruby in Paradise, where this could be Ashley Judd's character in the future. I could really see that because that's just the kind of person that she is in that movie. This is the kind of similar vibe that you get from Frances McDormand's character, just somebody who's kind of touring life, just kind of taking a look at various different ideas of what life could be and what it has been, and just all the experiences that she packs into every moment of life. It's beautiful that way.
And Ruby in Paradise was re-released this week. That's so right. I do have it on the list right before the classic. So we can, it's up to you how much time we spend on it. Cause sure. Like I said, we just recorded a 2-hour podcast. But I mean, this rightfully deserves all the attention it's getting. Fantastic movie. I mean, I'm still going to lean towards, Promising Young Woman or something like that. Cause I'm more into that type of movie, but this is what I wanted 3 Billboards to be in a way. It really is phenomenal and deserves all the accolades it's getting. The Blackout,
directed by Daniela DiCarlo and starring a cast of people you've never heard of before. Actually, a movie that was made back in 2019 that's just now getting out there because the COVID and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's actually a movie called The Blackout that came out in 2020, which is making searching for this a bitch.
So very, very true. And it's so unlike that movie, which is a big, loud sci-fi movie. This is just a little tiny character movie about this group of girls who live in this New York apartment just about the time that Hurricane Sandy is hitting. And they are all together for this party that they throw that they invited some friends to. And throughout the night, they're just going to have these lengthy conversations. And this is really a movie about film language, telling a story that is so simple and yet so complex, because everybody's talking a lot, but they're not saying exactly what's on their mind. They're not telling you what's going on. It's not explanatory. It's all talking around or revealing themselves in different ways, or revealing yourself with the way you react to something that someone else said. It's far more revealing than what you actually say. And that is so much more like real life than so many other movies. And I really appreciated this. Daniela DiCarlo is really a very good director. And you can tell because she's got all of these characters and all of this dialogue, and yet visually the movie is as interesting or more interesting than anything that anyone has to say. And the centerpiece of this film is just this lengthy conversation by candlelight between all the characters, telling a story about themselves that they feel is important, and revealing about themselves, or a deep secret that they've never talked about before. And instead of those moments being the ones that actually reveal them and reveal a thing about them, it's really more how they react to what other people say that says more about them than anything they say in their actual story. And I love that. I also love just the little visual touches that she throws in throughout. It's just such a smartly directed movie. Nobody's going to see this, unfortunately, because they can't find it based on that title. But I like this movie a lot.
Yeah, you compared it to a millennial Big Chill minus the, what's the word you used?
the soundtrack that's better than the movie.
Well,
and the pretension.
Man, I liked the Big Chill when I saw it way back when, but I haven't gone back and watched it again. So
yeah,
even when it turned 30, I didn't watch it. But again, I had to watch all my movies like yesterday, so this one didn't make the cut. I watched a lot of movies this week, but oddly enough, there's so many movies on this week's episode that it's going to seem like I didn't watch shit. But I mean, it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I really like it. Look up Daniela DiCarlo. That way you can maybe find it that way.
That's why I found the picture.
I actually had a little interaction with her on Twitter, which was really nice. And she said when she read my comparison to The Big Chill, she's like, "That's what I was going for." And it's like, yes,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Silk Road. I was gonna watch this till I read your review.
Silk Road is based off of a true story about the Silk Road, which is a website that was created to be the Amazon.com of the dark web and drugs. This guy created it. Sorry, he created it basically to kind of based off of his libertarian beliefs that that the war on drugs is futile and that drugs should be on the market and available to people to use if they choose. That's at least what he's saying. The reality is he's just a guy who is looking to make some money. That's really what it comes down to. And Nick Robinson, in his performance, captures that pretty well. He actually plays this guy who's based off a real guy really well. And he actually gets to kind of the empty core of the character better than the movie does, because the movie, as directed by Tiller Russell, seems to want to side with him. As it seems to be like, I don't know if the director is a libertarian himself, but he keeps mentioning this libertarianism and that it's important to the character. And it kind of feels like at the end when he's talking about this guy ended up getting a life sentence, even though he didn't actually kill anybody. All he did was create this website and then tried to pay people to get killed.
Right.
That turned out to be, he was talking to the cops when he was hiring people to do the murders on his behalf. So he was a terrible guy who probably deserves life in prison for what he got. But the movie wants to believe that he was, he's a victim. And especially at the end, they've got this, this crawl on the screen telling you that he got a life sentence, even though nobody technically died. Well, he did order 2 murders. Regardless, he also created a website that began as, well, I'm going to let people sell some weed, and this will be, all about psychedelics, safe drugs. Then it grows up to cocaine and meth, and then he's allowing arms dealers and child pornographers to trade in what they trade in on his website. And the movie doesn't even bother to fucking mention it. They don't even mention the illegal arms dealers that he was allowing to work on the Silk Road. He didn't mention the child pornographers, or how he wrote blogs on the website telling child pornographers how they could get away with their child pornography. As long as the cops don't see you open the package, you're okay. Wow. He's literally telling them how to get away with it. But he's the victim here, right? No, but the thing about it is that the performances are so much better than the movie. And I haven't seen Jason Clarke be this good at something in a long time. He's been in a lot of really terrible movies, and he's pretty good here in this character that's basically functionary. You don't know. I don't believe this character that he plays actually exists. He's an amalgam probably of several different DEA agents who are tracking the Silk Road. But he plays this old school cop who gets busted down to cyber crimes and then uses his old school cop stuff to go after the Silk Road. And he's the one who makes the bust, even though technically the computer guys made the bust.
Well, that's kind of when I read that in your review and then watched the trailer. You can't not unsee that. All of a sudden I don't buy into the movie anymore because the old school ways of doing things in this highly technical world. There's no way that, I work with old school people. I know that that just kind of turned me off right away. I do think we need to just lose the word libertarian. No one knows what it means anymore. Right. It's turned into, there's people I like a lot who claim to be libertarian, and then there's other people who just want to say the libertarian so they can say the N-word again. It's there's decent people that want to be that, and I understand. And quite frankly, if he was just selling drugs, I don't really give a shit. Everything else, though, the guns and the pornography and the murdering people or trying to get people murdered, that's horrible. Mm-hmm. But sure, he started with the right idea. The war on drugs, I watched this documentary my wife made me watch this week on Netflix about the war. I knew everything, but how the U.S. government's financing it or using it to I don't know. It's not even worth talking about. Everybody knows it. Reagan, Bush, Clinton, right. All of them are involved. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I could have watched one more movie last night and it was going to be this. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go listen to Slipknot in the basement. That helped me get through the Trump years. Never liked that band before. But anyway, it's out there. It seems, if you want to watch the performance, I guess.
It's on Apple TV.
Actually, you can rent it on anywhere, I think. You have to pay for it on Apple TV as well. Burn It All.
Burn It All. This is this movie is so awesome. I love this movie. This is a movie about just basically a woman who's just had it. She is just done with men, and she just done with all the bullshit that she's had to put up with, and she's willing to say it. Like, so many movies are unwilling to say what it is that they're doing. No, she's really just she's fucking tired of men, and that's what it comes down to. And then she's involved in this like outsized plot that happens to be just consistently men just trying to get in her way and just fuck with her, and she's just done with it. I fucking love this. There's this repeated bit throughout the movie where people just keep asking her, why are you so angry? Or they tell her to calm down, or why are women so emotional? She just continues to just tell these guys to go fuck themselves every single time. Like, why are you so angry? Well, they'd taken her hostage at that point and were trying to steal her mother's organs. And they're asking her why she's angry. They're telling her to calm down when they got guns pointed at her. It's just so smart and such a wonderful performance. Elizabeth Cotter stars as Alex, and Alex is somebody who, when we meet her, the movie begins with this great joke about she's suicidal and she's been on hold with the suicide hotline for 47 minutes. And then it goes from there. The call gets interrupted because she gets a call from a hospital in her hometown telling her that her mom is dying and telling her that you've got only a little while if you want to come here and see her before she passes away. By the time she arrives, her mother has died. And she meets up with her ex-boyfriend, who's now a cop, even though he was an abusive asshole when they were together. They really the whole thing that whole relationship drove her apart from her mother. She decides that when he tells her that his mom has probably already been cremated by now, she's like confused because that's not what her mom wanted. She knows that her mom didn't want to be cremated. So she goes to the funeral home. She encounters a couple of people who are stealing her mom's body. She ends up getting taken hostage. And from there, she ends up just getting into a series of fights with these men who just continue to condescend and underestimate her throughout. And the way Elizabeth Cotter plays this role is it's typical, typically people will compare her to other female, action heroes or something. But really what it reminded me of more than anything was Bruce Willis in Die Hard and just how he's how pissed off and annoyed he was to be in the situation that he was in. And she kind of captures that energy really well. I adore this movie.
Yeah, I saw it. I don't like it as much as you, but I do like it. I agree with just about everything. I'm not as big on the performance. I don't think she's a legit badass, but she's not the best actor in the world. Like,
I think she doesn't have for the most part.
Right. She doesn't have the charisma of a Bruce Willis or even like if you want to compare to other female leads, Charlize Theron or whatever. But she's way more. The action scenes are awesome. It is funny the way everything you're describing and the way they do it, and it's really smart. It's well directed. The performances do hold me back a little bit from enjoying it as much as you did. And again, I don't remember the mood I was in going into it too, if I'm just getting hung up on stuff. It's not a bad performance by any means. It's just not I don't feel like we're going to be talking about Burn It All like it's Die Hard in 20 years is more what I'm getting at. But that doesn't mean, she is a legit badass and the action scenes are fantastic. And there's a lot to learn from this movie. I mean, just the idea of what you're saying, telling her to calm down while they're
holding a gun on her.
Yeah. I mean, that's
and that she's perfectly calm and they're the ones who are freaking out.
Right. It's insanely well written, insanely well directed. That's the only thing holding me off and it's probably more on me than anything is just she generally comes off as annoyed. When Bruce Willis comes off as annoyed with charisma, and in reality, that's actually not how it works. And so this is actually probably more of a real performance than what Bruce Willis does. Yeah. But for whatever reason, I didn't enjoy it as much because of that. But everything else you're saying is right on.
Much of my positive review is based off of just a couple of little things. Just there's one line in the movie that's my favorite line in the movie all year long. I can do anything you can do, bleeding. I've been delivered with just such perfection. Oh God, I loved it. I loved that line. Just made me fall on the floor.
And I think I'm wanting it more heightened. Yeah. And maybe it's similar to we just got done doing the A24 podcast where Josh talked about Hereditary and what he wanted it to be, and I'm wanting a heightened, more charismatic delivery. And
I think what we're getting is to play this character.
But what we're getting is a real performance, I guess, and that's I'll happily say I'm bringing it that to it, but it is insanely well written and insanely well directed.
I also love that he made an action movie that's also about the way men talk to women.
Oh yeah,
using this body snatching plot as a way to comment on the ludicrous way that men talk to women so thoughtlessly and so without even just the condescension and the underestimating and just the way they do it throughout, the way they speak to her and treat her throughout is just, the way she plays it and just being so over it. She's heard it so many times of men telling her to calm down, like her boyfriend who literally beat her up and was the reason why she and her mother were apart from each other. And he tells her to relax, or why can't you just get over it? Or you beat her up. You punched her repeatedly throughout your relationship. You want her to just pretend that didn't happen. Oh, you're so emotional. Fuck you. Die. Fucker.
In that you're right. The writing is so intelligent and so smart and funny, and the direction too. I agree completely. It really is. It stands alone as its own kind of action movie that And the action scenes are fantastic. Let's not, and I'm not trying to take anything away from that. This movie is worth seeing. Who knows what mood I was in when I saw it. It was the first one I watched this week, but again, I don't love it as much as you, but I definitely appreciate it. And again, it's back to there's no corporate in this movie. You definitely have it. I appreciate it for existing. I want more movies like this. So I'm glad.
I think another thing I loved is I just want somebody to talk to bad guys the way that she talks to bad guys, because all the bad guys in this movie are bad guys from other movies that nobody ever says anything to them. They just allow them to be who they are, and she will not allow them to be as cool as they think they are.
And I know the irony of me wanting someone to pretend to be a badass and deliver it that way, as opposed to an actual badass saying it the way she would say it in real life. I understand how the oxymoron of what I'm saying is, but I don't know. It could have been even more fun, I think, but that's not what this movie is, and that's me bringing it to it, and I shouldn't do that as a viewer, but I'm a human being. Test pattern. I could not find this one anywhere.
It's only available on Kino Lorber's website, I believe. Virtual screening there. This movie is a tough one, and it's another one that's commenting on misogyny and the way men treat women, as a the way sometimes men, without even realizing, you treat somebody like yours, they're your possession. Even as somebody can be as loving and caring as they are, and still refer to someone as mine, or as a property, as you will, and kind of removing their humanity in that way. The story goes here that these two people meet at a bar one night, and they have a good vibe together, and they're very sweet together, and they have a very romantic start to their relationship, and they develop into a relationship where they begin living together, as there's a white guy and a black woman, and she takes on a new job, and she's starting to change a little bit in ways that are kind of, you don't even recognize it really that she's changing all that much, but she's changing in these big major ways when you step away from it. And one night she decides to go out with a friend of hers, and he's totally cool about it. Like I said, they're two very loving, charming people together. But while she's out with her friend, she ends up getting drugged and raped. And she returns home the next morning, and he says that we should go, we need to go get a rape kit. We need to go talk to the police. And she's kind of like, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to deal with this. I don't even know what happened because I was, out cold. I don't even remember it. But he's insistent upon it. He drags her to the hospital and is, very adamant about them. You need to give us a rape kit. They don't have one. They don't have a person who can deliver one. So they've got to go to a different hospital, and then another hospital. They end up going to another one to try and get it. And finally they do get it. And then he calls the cops, and she's telling him not to, because again, she doesn't know exactly what happened. She can't even identify the guy who did it. And she would really just like to try and put it behind them, and he won't. And the way that he acts so entitled in this situation, like they should just give this to us because we deserve it. And she's like, just stop. He won't listen to her. And the disconnect between the two of them. And then you slowly realize that he's not abusive, but he's so self-involved. He doesn't realize that he's not allowing her to be herself and make her own decisions and have her own power in their relationship. And that the way that's revealed via this situation is so beautiful and dramatic and well put together. And they do it in 82 minutes, which is really, really impressive that they communicate all of that in that short amount of time.
Sounds like an amazing movie. Like, where would you rank it in terms of, like, is it up there as well, or is it just too serious? I don't know. It sounds like it would be right up there at the top of the list with, Nomadland and some other things, or is it not artistic enough?
Oh no, it's absolutely brilliant, and it's a top 5 movie of the year in terms of being good. I haven't written about it yet because I can't quite bring myself. I read a review by Jordan Searles in Hollywood Reporter that is so good and so definitive about this movie that I don't feel I can do it justice the way that she did, and so I haven't written about it. But read her review. and you'll sense just how amazing this movie is.
Yeah, it sounds right up my. I mean, I'm really fascinated by the way you describe that, and even the line, "Everything in the world is about sex except sex. Sex is about power." That's a hell of a tagline.
Yeah.
Truth to power, some more social justice.
Those stupid SJWs. The guy who actually coined the term.
Is this the guy who termed it?
Serge Tankian and the guy from Raging Tom Morello. They were actually the guys who came up with the term social justice warrior, because that's what they wanted to be. They wanted social justice. And so, yeah, Truth to Power is about Serge Tankian, the lead singer of System of a Down, which is, I've had a strange relationship with that band. I'd never and it relates back to, weirdly, September 11th. I was in radio at the time, and I was, on top of music at the time and very involved in music at that time. And after September 11th, I fell out of love with music. I had to, a week after September 11th, I had less than a week, 5 days after, I had to go back to Mix 96 radio in the Quad Cities and host a disco dance party. And I called my boss like the Wednesday of that week, because the show was on Saturday. I said, we're not going to do the disco show Saturday, right? And he's like, why not? And I was kind of like, well, I can't do it. 2,000 people just died. And he's like, well, we got a show to do. So that moment kind of divorced me from music for many years, just because I couldn't listen to anything and be happy anymore. And about that time that System of a Down became one of the biggest things in the world for a time around that time, with hit records. And somehow I managed to not see that. I managed to not witness any of their career during that time, even though they were one of the biggest things in the world. And so this movie comes back around, and it reminded me of all those feelings and emotions, and how directly involved he was in the moments after, September 11th, being on the Howard Stern show and talking about, social justice, and not necessarily saying that America deserved it, but that, this is reaping what you sow when it comes to your involvement in the Middle East. And the band came together over their shared heritage in Armenia, which the Armenian genocide plays a big role in this movie as well, which leads up to a very powerful ending of this. It's another super short movie, only about 77 minutes long, but it tells an amazing story about how art can be revolutionary.
I love this. I'm a big System of a Down fan, and I was, when their first album came out, I was going to see Metallica for the first time, and it was System of a Down, this Power Man 5000, Kid Rock, and Korn. Like, all these bands are at this height. Like, System of a Down just started, Korn's at their peak, Kid Rock's at his peak, and I've never heard System of a Down, so I went out and bought the record, and I was just like, holy shit, this is probably the second best band on the bill. And they went first, and we got there, and ever since then, I've just absolutely fell in love with them. And then you find out, and Serge would be the one I like the most. As a guitar player, oddly enough, the guitar player is not in this movie. The rest of the band is. And oddly enough, they haven't made a record in a while. And they also talk about how they don't like how Serge is, trying to bring politics to the band. Their best songs are political. The other ones are okay. They're fine. But yeah. It's like, and if you listen to their records, the more and more deeper into the newer stuff, Darren, the guitar player, sings more, and he's more of a backup singer. And those songs are okay, but the ones where Serge is out front, those are the best songs, because he's got such a cool, unique voice, where the way he scats is cool, the way he screams is cool, the way he sings is cool. It's all neat. He goes off and makes a jazz record later on, and he does a lot of cool things, but it's just such a bummer that they won't let him. And part of it's his fault too, for being stubborn and forcing his will on the band. The drummer's a Trump supporter. I mean, the drummer's a fucking weirdo. But it's weird. They're also all friends. I went and saw them live just right before, not last year, obviously, but the year before. It was a great show. It's weird. But this movie it's really all about the Armenian genocide and what they did to help get the United States to at least recognize it, not among other things. But I don't know. It really is a good movie. It's an easy movie to get through, and it was cool of him to include, members of his band to talk about how they were annoyed. And I mean, it's a very honest, how social justice warriors can be annoying, and how sometimes what they're doing isn't effective and they're actually being hurtful. And the way he handled September 11th, what he said was true, but the timing and the way he was doing it didn't make a whole lot of sense, and it was him dealing, coming to grips with that and learning what to do. And I think as someone who wants to be more, for lack of a better phrase, woke, it does a good job of, when do you shut up? When do you say, it does kind of show you there's a way to go about making an example and, doing the right thing. And I just found it very honest, very cool. And it was a lot more about the band than I thought it was going to be. I don't know, I really liked it.
Yeah, it's an incredible documentary and very emotional, especially when you get to the end and you've got the people of Armenia asking him to come home in this massive group of people, and just the emotion that he's feeling and the change that they're making happen is. And there's a little handbook, everybody, in case you want one, on how to on how to protest. In case you ever need one, Armenia already did it. Just pay attention.
Yeah, it was pretty. That was cool too. What inspired him to do a System of a Down concert inspired a protest. It's just amazing. And what's really cool is they do a good job of. He's a big rock star. They make him very human in this, and very small. And then at the same time, you see him leading this movement where he almost doesn't even realize he's leading it at times, and you get a genuine reaction from him, just kind of not realizing how big of an impact he's actually having.
Yeah.
And it's that alone is fascinating, but along with what he accomplished is what's really fascinating. But I really thought this movie was really good, and I think people should watch it. Even if you're not a fan of System of the Down, I think you'll enjoy it. And then
I feel kind of dumb because I look back, to like 2002, 2003, thinking about why isn't anybody protesting the war? Like, why aren't there? Where are all the great? Where are those great protest songs?
Rage Against the Machine go.
Like I couldn't find, but they're mainstream pop. Like, doesn't have anything. There's no great. It didn't feel like the '60s. It didn't feel like there was anybody actually doing anything important. And somehow I feel like, I know it sounds like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but I really feel like System of a Down was pushed away from the mainstream and still managed to be, they had the number one record in the country. And usually something like that's going to permeate even to somebody like me who's not paying attention. I'm still going to know what the number one album in the country is, or that there's a big hit song out there. These guys went to number one without anybody noticing it, seemingly, and no mainstream attention, no talk show appearances, no MTV. They get banned from radio. A couple of their songs are on that list that Clear Channel famously put out, banning these songs, don't play them. And it's incredible to think that their fans were so loyal that they still managed to make them one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you might have separated yourself a little bit. I mean, they were pretty big. I mean, it was hard to get away from that Chop Suey song. And there's a fun part in the movie that has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. That song, the lyrics make no sense, and you find out how he wrote it, like literally just opening up books and pulling lines out of a book. It was pretty fascinating. But I mean, they were a pretty big band, but it was cool because it was right after he had wrote that thing about America on the day after September 11th on the band's website, and people were protesting him, and Howard Stern shit all over him and even had him on to shit on him some more. Then they went to number one. It was like after all of that. But their song, I mean, Chop Suey, Toxicity, BYOB, that's hard to avoid those songs. They are out there in the mainstream pop culture.
But he didn't get it. Like when you look at the Dixie Chicks and the way that they got hammered by everyone in the media, he got off. He walked away from that. His band was still number one. Dixie Chicks are still around and still big, but I mean, it's just a notion of just how of the misogyny of our mainstream culture, that they became the posters who got hammered down and punched constantly, and there wasn't jokes about Serge Tankian and System of a Down on Letterman that night.
Well, but that's not entirely fair. They were known against the band's will. They became known as a political band. Rage Against the Machine never got shit on either.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. That I think Dixie Chicks got it because they were women, and these guys didn't get that hammer because they're men.
No, I think they got it because Dixie Chicks never established themselves as a protesting anti-establishment band. I mean, yes, I'm not going to pretend there definitely was a level of what you're saying, but I think more than anything, if they were known as a band that was always anti-establishment, I mean, I think that played more of a role than the misogyny, but I'm not going to pretend like misogyny didn't exist. You're 100% right. But I mean, people just don't like them, so they don't talk about them. I don't know. It was against their will, but they were definitely a political band at that point, and people just kind of either loved it or hated it, and they didn't talk about it. But anyway, anything else on Truth or Power?
No, it's available everywhere.
Ruby in Paradise got re-released this week from 1993.
Yeah, Quiver Distribution picked this one up, and the director, Victor Nunez, has spent the last 10 years or so just kind of working on this movie and remastering it for this particular opportunity for re-release. It's the first film from Ashley Judd, and it's about a girl who moves to Florida, to a tourist mecca in Florida, she just has nothing else to do. She's kind of a tourist, and this is a tourist destination. And really, she's a tourist of life. She's just kind of viewing different lives and taking them in and having little experiences here and there and sort of commenting on it and just taking it all in. And maybe she's going to go this way or that way. And I really love the way this movie is structured. It's structured with her not being a typical character in any way. She makes these decisions that are just kind of based off of, I kind of want to do this now. And now I kind of want to do this. And I'm going to have this experience. But then, of course, she's got all these obstacles in her way, like, economics. This movie, it's like she talks about being 2 weeks away from being on the streets, which she's not wrong. And still today, that's the case for so many people. It's still resonant today. Ashley Judd is just brilliant in this movie. And then you've got Todd Field, who plays the sort of love interest who in a mainstream movie would be quirky and fun. But the reality of that character is so much more interesting because he's unintentionally misogynistic. He's unintentionally, his traditionalist values minimize her in, trying to turn her into a typical wife mother type that he thinks he wants, and that she likes things like he's a very pretentious guy who feels that everything that anybody likes is representative of everything that's wrong in the world, and his superiority, she constantly undermines his superiority in a very smart way. I adore this movie. I got a chance to talk to the director this week for a new podcast that I'm doing on my radio outlet at IllinoisNewsNow.com, where you can hear me talking to Victor Nunez and talking about the movie. And it's one of my favorites now.
That's cool. Where would you compare it to Nomadland? Is it good, better, or is it just hard to compare against each other?
I think, like you said, they're so similar in so many ways. I think really Ruby, the character in Nomadland could be Ruby as a kid, or could be Ruby as an adult. I mean, they share a lot of traits in that way, and I love that.
That's very cool. All right, let's move on to our classic.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed classic.
It's Donald Sutherland in a bathtub with a kid. Go.
That one did stick out to me too. It was weird and awkward, but Bob, I'm constantly concerned about our place in the mainstream and our download numbers. So I thought to myself, what we need is more Paul Mazursky, because the kids love nothing more than a good Paul Mazursky movie.
So we double up this week. It's two.
I thought for sure after last week we had so many nice things to say about, or I did at least, about Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice, and how unique and interesting that movie was, and one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite movies of all time. So I thought, well, maybe there's some like undiscovered genius there with Paul Mazursky. Like maybe he's like this hidden gem of a legendary director that I just haven't looked into before. And so, well, here's a weird movie. This is the follow-up to Bob Carroll and Ted and Alice, and I'm curious what's it going to be like. And it's unwatchable. From my perspective, I hate this movie so much. I haven't even finished it yet. That's how much I hate it. There's a scene in this movie to kind of gauge just how much I hate this movie. There's a scene in this movie that reminded me of 1517 to Paris, which that movie has a scene where they just go and buy gelato, and they're just talking about gelato for like 5 minutes. And this movie has a scene where Donald Sutherland and Ellen Burstyn are buying a house, and here's the kitchen. Can we go upstairs? Yes, you can go upstairs. Here's the upstairs. It's got a traditionally Spanish look to it. And I'm like, fucking buy the house or fucking don't. I don't care. Somebody do something. I was so mad. I was so bored. I was so irritated. And then it's got these Fellini scenes. They just basically just made me go, why aren't I watching a Fellini movie right now? I could be watching 8.5. If you're going to spend all this time talking about and referring to 8.5, I should just go watch that. Or Jean Moreau has a cameo in this from Jules and Jim. And I'm like, I could be watching Jules and Jim. I could be watching that. I love that movie. I could be watching that right now. Instead of suffering through Donald Sutherland being insufferable, talking about the movie ideas that he doesn't like, or that he does like, or that nobody else likes, that he likes, dancing with naked black people on a beach for some reason. Like, fuck you. Fuck this movie. I hate it.
There's never been a movie more up its ass its own ass than this one.
So true.
This is literally about Paul Mazursky not knowing what to do after Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice, and wanting to do something that means something, but also wanting to make something as good as 8.5. When you're inspired by a movie, you don't sit and talk about it the whole time in the movie you're making about the movie.
Mm-hmm. To the point where Fellini actually shows up in the movie.
Right. I mean, it would be like if like Death Proof was nothing but Vanishing Point references. Now they do make a reference
right.
to it in it, but that, it's kind of what, or anything Tarantino does. Or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's all about Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice, because that was one of the movies that inspired that movie.
Yeah.
And he never mentions it. That it's just odd. This is like, I made a South Park joke on the bonus episode, but Cartman would hate this movie. Talk about hippie bullshit.
Fuck yes it is. Oh my god, I didn't expect to hate this so much, but I really did. I thought, because I kind of like movies about Hollywood. We were just talking about The Disaster Artist before, which is a movie about movies. That's a really great movie about movies, and this is a movie about movies, and it's terrible. It's, like I said, I feel it's unwatchably bad. And Roger Ebert gave this 4 stars, and I can only imagine that's got to be Stockholm Syndrome setting in after the first few years of his career, having suffered through so many similar mainstream movies. He just was looking for anything that was going to be slightly different. I can only imagine, because otherwise I can't understand it. Maybe this movie is just such a movie of its time that it can't exist anywhere outside of 1970. I don't know. It's awful.
And I appreciate it in a way, in that, again, you don't see the corporate in this, because
right.
Corporate's like, there's no money in this thing. It's about a director who doesn't know what to do next, so he just kind of essentially films himself. Only it's Donald Sutherland. Mm-hmm. The daughter in the bathtub with him is Paul Mazursky's daughter.
God,
so it makes it a little less weird. At least he knows the people involved.
Right.
I'm sure he had shorts on, but it still was. I hope he got as much shit as Nicole Kidman got 20, 30 years later. Because that's way more creepier than Nicole Kidman in the bathtub with the kid. But I don't know. I can appreciate it on that level, but it also is in my opinion, like a disastrous failure. Mm-hmm. And not in the fun way either. It's not like We're the Room. The stuff you can take out of it and enjoy. This is just boring. And
it is.
You dislike the people involved. It makes you hate hippies even more. That said, it's not like Donald Sutherland's bad. I mean, he's not, the performance, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just long and boring, and you're just kind of annoyed. It's like, just pick your fucking movie and make it and move on. But yeah.
So I like I said, I didn't even finish it. I was so annoyed. How did this end?
I don't remember. I mean,
it's another Fellini nightmare. Just
there's a few of those throughout. There's more than one.
Yeah,
I think there's like 3. But I mean, it's in a way, it's a slice of life movie where you just, here's what happened during this time. It's not like there's an ending.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, all right, we're out of time. And part of me couldn't tell. I mean, it was just so out of touch too, and maybe it's because of the time I'm watching it in versus when it came out. But and they didn't, like the Alice in Wonderland part, they didn't dig into the Wonderland part of it enough for that to be fascinating. I don't know, just kind of a mess.
I mean, the comparison doesn't make any sense in the performance of Donald Sutherland, who's very savvy about all that's happening around him. As weird as it all gets, he's very savvy about all of it. He's playing the game. He understands how Hollywood works. He's not a babe in the woods. He's not an innocent. Alice was an innocent drawn into Wonderland and taken on a journey. He's not an innocent wandering into Hollywood being taken on a journey. So I don't understand the comparison, why they decided to make that the center point of the film, because it doesn't make any sense.
But he's aware, and then he's awkward, and then I just don't like, it doesn't make, I don't know, it's not consistent enough for me. Like the awkward scenes, like at some points it's like he's Tommy Wiseau, but then other times he's Paul Mazursky, you know. It's not the same guy the whole time. I don't know. It really was.
At one point, he asks his friends when they last masturbated, and this is very funny to him. And I don't understand why it's funny or why you're having this conversation. What's this supposed to reveal about anybody? I guess it's supposed to be about how even married men still masturbate, which, okay, great. Does that mean that they're unsatisfied? I don't understand what your point is here. What's the funny part? We get to the funny part. Plus, we don't know the characters that he's talking to, so we don't have any context to make that be funny. It's funny to him because they're his friends. Maybe this is something that comes up a lot amongst them, but it feels like a conversation that you're witnessing among a group of strangers, and you don't know why it's funny. And so again, the up its own ass aspect of this. Then he's got this thing that he does throughout the movie. If you were on a desert island by yourself and you could only have 3 foods the rest of your life, what would they be? Who the fuck cares? Does that reveal something about any of these fucking characters? One time. Does it mean anything to anyone? What does that reveal? Nothing. Fellini likes strawberries. Fucking great. Thanks.
Yeah, it's shit like that makes it me not like the movie. That said, you know, if you look at all the great artists, they always have that piece of shit that they needed to do to get to the next thing, you know? And so I can appreciate it on that level, but I don't know, you know, it's like Metallica needed Saint Anger, Aerosmith needed Rockin' a Hard Place, you know, Van Halen needed to do that Gary Sharon thing. I don't know. And sometimes you just need to do something to move forward. And so I can appreciate it on that level. I just don't like
so far, from my experience of Paul Mazursky, I'm going to compare him more to, say, like a band like Extreme that has one good record and then everything else is kind of bullshit.
I love Extreme though. You compare him to Nelson or something.
I don't think he's the Van Halen of directors.
Yeah, I wasn't meaning to. And quite frankly, that was like Van Halen's second to last album. So that didn't even really prove my point at all. But let's move on to Paul Mazursky and
keep the kids entertained.
Yeah.
Scenes from a Mall stars Woody Allen and Bette Midler as a couple who are cheating on each other, who are going to reveal that to each other on their anniversary party day while they're at a mall in Los Angeles. And man, this movie is at least more entertaining than Alice in Wonderland. It has a structure to it. It makes sense what happens, but you're watching 2 really shitty people be shitty to each other for 90 minutes. That's pretty much the experience of Scenes from a Mall. And you'd said something in our chat about how it was essentially the way I took it was like how an actor or a director can reveal themselves through the roles that they play in the movies that they make. And Woody Allen has done that to us over and over again. And we've just kind of taken it as him, he's so honest about himself when we're not exactly examining what he's being honest about, which is that he's a really shitty human being.
Right. Well, we started with Manhattan and
Right?
we watched it. We knew what was about it and it was like, this is really good though.
Yeah.
It is kind of creepy. And then basically what it came down to was I was like, I was comparing him to Louis C.K. and Marilyn Manson, where it's like Louis C.K. was the biggest comedian out there because his comedy was so raw and honest about what he was doing to people. And Marilyn Manson, I mean, people were defending him because it's all what he does is he's upfront about it and he's showing you, and you should know better when you get into it. And I was like, no, it's. And I'll be honest, I like Marilyn Manson's music, and it's hard for me to want, to say these things. And I'm sure you're a big Woody Allen fan. It's hard you want to defend it to an extent, but the art is definitely, and he didn't even make this movie, but it made me go back to movies like Annie Hall and Manhattan that are actually very, very great.
Yeah.
But you're seeing, he's always talking about young girls in it, and he does it again here. And even when he can't help but when he's being too honest to Bette Midler in this movie, I could see him saying those things. And maybe I'm totally projecting, but we have reason to project. And I don't know, it was kind of the nail in the coffin for me and Woody Allen, and sadly it's not even his movie. And you had said something about if he had directed this, it'd be like
he would be married to Julia Roberts.
Right.
in 1991, Julia Roberts, somebody who was like 30 years younger than him. And it would be about how much younger she is and how she doesn't understand him. And they're both cheating on each other and they're still really shitty to each other. And she's more intelligent than she should be. But that would be the Woody Allen version of this, would be him and Julia Roberts together, which I think he did at one point put himself with Julia Roberts in the movie. He like you said, he's revealed himself multiple times to be like, we take it in as just his flaws and him being honest about his flaws, and we're not examining what those flaws are. And when you do, when you really put your mind to it, it's like, oh man, he really is a piece of shit.
And that doesn't make him not a great artist. He's found a good way of taking that, and clearly he struggles with it. Picasso
was a bastard. There's no way around it.
Yeah, I mean, it is still great art, and it's something clearly he's not proud of because he's bringing it into his movies. Louis C.K. the same thing. Manson probably not so much, but it just, I don't know. I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, we may talk about the HBO Max series that's coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But this is just that mixed with how it kind of does the same thing Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, I'm cheating on you. And that was just like, is this all he makes? Because I watched this before Alex in Wonderland. I'm like, great, he's going to cheat on his wife on that one too. But this is really more of a straight ahead comedy.
Yeah.
And the best part of it was when Bette Midler kicked him in the balls. That was a great scene.
Yeah.
It's watchable. I'll give it that, but it's definitely not high art like Bob and Carol Ted and Alice is.
Right.
And then there's He Said, She Said. Elizabeth Perkins, Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, this is about two TV reporters who get their own TV segment where they're disagreeing with each other, and he's a man and she's a woman, and they've got different perspectives on how they see relationships, but they're going to fall in love and fuck this movie. It's pretty much all I got to say.
Works for me. Next week, we'll be going on 4 hours, 3 hours.
I got a surprise for you. We got a guest next week. Amy's coming back. Amy's going to join us next week.
Sweet.
Yeah,
we're she a fan of.
Well, she's been a big music fan for years, and so we've got 3 music movies next week that I thought that would be right in her wheelhouse.
Sweet. We got The Vigil, that'll be streaming. Cherries on Apple TV. The United States versus Billie Holiday's on Hulu. Crazy About Her is on Netflix. We don't always get to the Netflix movies, but if we do, we do. I'll always throw out what has become the new Fishing with Gandhi as The Last Champion. Jason Bryan, a Patreon supporter, and a friend of ours who's always advertising our podcast on his sites. He's drinking out of our coffee mug and stuff and putting it online. I appreciate that. He is in that movie. He's a Hall of Fame wrestling broadcaster. So at some point I'm going to watch that movie. We had 47 movies this week. That is available to rent right now. Yeah. Our classic. Go ahead.
I've watched 61 movies this year, by the way.
It's not even March yet. Our classic is The Coal Miner's Daughter. And in 1991, The Doors, My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys, and Shipwrecked came out. So, should be a fun week.
Yeah.
Let's see. You have any energy left for Flick Chart?
Sure.
All right. Witness or The Mexican?
Witness.
I'll go with you on that one. San Andreas, Dr. Giggles.
I don't know.
I haven't thought about Dr. Giggles since 1992.
I'm sorry. I'm going in and out. I apologize. San Andreas.
Okay.
I don't remember Dr. Giggles, so.
A Fistful of Dollars, Alien Resurrection.
Fistful of Dollars.
Nightcrawler, Battle Royale.
That's tough. I guess I'd probably watch Nightcrawler. So yeah, Nightcrawler.
I'm gonna go Battle Royale only because Nightcrawler is so effective. It actually pissed me off a little bit. I dropped the quarter on the ground, so hold on. Bear with me, folks. It is Tails, Battle Royale. Stuart Little, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
The Green Mile, The Village.
The Green Mile. Reluctantly.
Blade Runner, The Hunt for Red October.
Blade Runner.
Agreed. Logan, 101 Dalmatians.
Logan.
My Fair Lady, Changeling.
Changeling.
I like that movie. The Children's Hour. I've never seen that. The Quick and the Dead.
Yeah, I don't know The Children's Hour.
Mystic River, The Quick and the Dead.
It's Mystic River.
Yeah, Sam Raimi was still learning how to make movies at that point. The Saint, The Quick and the Dead.
The Saint.
I mean, Sharon Stone just took over that movie too much. I'm not going to blame Sam Raimi on it. The Mexican, Lake Placid.
No, the Mexican.
Just for the movie stars alone.
Yeah.
Never Die Alone. Robin and Marianne or Marion or.
No, I don't recognize any of those movies.
Oh yeah, DMX. I've never seen that. Uncle Buck, Richie Rich.
Uncle Buck, I guess.
Yeah. Exit Through the Gift Shop or Enchanted.
Ooh, those are two really good movies. Exit Through the Gift Shop.
I've never actually seen it, so I'll go with you on that one. But I do like Enchanted. Tangled, Vertigo.
Vertigo.
That's a tough one. Rocketeer, Speed 2, Cruise Control.
Rocketeer.
Yeah. The Hobbit, The Battle of Five Armies, Horrible Bosses.
Horrible Bosses.
Agreed.
A truly horrible boss would make you watch The Hobbit, The Five Armies.
That is true. 42, Tommy Boy.
42.
Best in Show, World War Z.
Best in Show. I don't hate World War Z as much as most people do, though.
Right. Halloween 2, Rocky.
Rocky. I don't need to think about that.
Agreed. The Lady from Shanghai, Cowboys and Aliens.
Lady from...
And I think I lost Sean. That's the show, everybody. Talk to you next week.